Hello everybody, welcome back to Wolfeei. Today we're going to be looking at a Reddit post that asks the question, should Block Wars do more fewer person events? Now, for some of you, this may be an unknown thing. What do you mean fewer person events? Aren't the teams always the same amount of people every single time? And two times is the case? No. 3 times technically, but two specific ones. Number one, Block Wars Chaos. Of course, we had different team sizes throughout the entire event, but the main one that they're referring to is the Baablu Block Wars, which was a duos rendition of Block Wars, specifically hosted by Baablu, and I'll get into those specifics a little bit more in a little bit. But this was a invitational, like a special. Some people call it a non-canon, whatever. We call it an invitational event by Baablu, where he did a duos style event for Block Wars with the effort more so, or the idea being that it would be a video, turn into a video. So this was for video purposes, etc. And we'll see. I don't know if that video has come out. I don't watch Minecraft, so I'm sure maybe it has, but that was the idea behind this whole thing. And the response to this duos event was actually pretty positive, mostly on Reddit because it was a little bit more higher comp. There were some people in that you wouldn't really have in regular Block Wars, etc. Some of the most requested people made an appearance in this event. And overall, I think it was a positive experience. There were some parts that, could be better. There were some parts that maybe don't work as well as you would hope with specifically a duos format, but overall it was good. So, this post says, ever since Block Wars Baablu, I've been thinking about if Block Wars should do more events with fewer people per team than usual. I think that Block Wars Baablu definitely showed some of the upsides to having small teams, and even if the minigames weren't really supposed to be played with less than 5 people, they were always super fun to see, sometimes even being more fun than the normal event, in my opinion. Shockwave went crazy. Fair enough. So they're saying, like, hey, having less people makes the event experience a little bit different. Should that be a more common thing? Should that happen again more so? Let's continue. Having less people on the team is, at least in my opinion, a double-edged sword. While allowing for some fun duos, it'd be a decent bit harder to make teams for. If we stuck with the 2-player format, S-tier duos would be impossible unless every team also has an S-tier duo. That is correct. On top of that, chemistry would likely have to be the highest priority while making the teams, since 2-player teams would force more communication between players than the conventional 5-player teams. And if these 2 players didn't get along, or were solely playing to win, leaving no room for goofing around, things could get a little bit hard to watch. That is totally correct. 100% agree. I think this is a big thing that is important for sure. When you have a duos format, you do want to have, a banger combination. I think Baablu did a really good job at making duos that were cool with each other, or at least worked well together. Continuing forward though, a 3-player team event, however, could allow for much more leniency in the team making compared to a 2-player team event. This could also allow for strong teams to also be fun with great chemistry, and A-tier duos, maybe S-tier duos in the right event, would definitely be a possibility. Now that we could add a weaker player into the mix, balancing the team. Some fun trio ideas I had with average, higher skill player, or higher skill level balancing in mind are Joel Ant Jimmy, FL Clown Seawat, Fine Poundy Rattles. These teams are just an example, but it goes to show how much easier it would be to make super fun teams while keeping the balance with smaller teams. Okay, so I think we've read a good amount here to kind of talk about fewer person events for Block Wars. How do they work? And would they happen more often? I'll start with question 2. Would they happen more often? Yeah, probably. Now, how do they work? So, the Baablu one in specific, obviously I can't get into the full details, went as follows. Baablu reached out to me, proposing the idea. I said, that's interesting, let me ask the team. The team was like, yeah, we can do that. I come back to Baablu, we say, we can do that, and Baablu says, alright, cool, let's try it. It is a player incentivized idea. It is not a Block Wars idea that we got a player involved for, similar to how MCC with their remixes potentially. Well, actually, it's the opposite. It's kind of like how remixes and MCC worked. A player has an idea, the event does it, and then the player technically takes credit. This one is a little different because it is a paid for event, and it's not a Block Wars official event. It's a invitational extra bonus type of thing. So, if this were to happen more often, it would be up for one player, a group of players, etc. It could even be non-players, because Baablu wasn't in the roster and still isn't in the roster permanently for Block Wars, but was someone who at least is close enough in association where that type of thing would be, approvable. But regardless, it's up to the players to come up with an idea like this and propose it and request it, essentially, right? And like mentioned, it is paid for. There is a price. There's a reason for that, because if there wasn't a price, this would obviously be requested constantly, and there would not really be a reason for people to not want to do it. So there has to be a price. And yeah, that's kind of the premise. So a trios event, if a player wants to do it, sure. I don't remember if Baablu said a trio players event was something he had in mind. I think it was like people brought it up at the end, and he was like, maybe we'll do another one. But I don't know. We'll see. And for the rest, I guess a solos event probably won't happen. Maybe if like an S tier really wants to see what a solos event would work or would look like, it could work or something like that. I don't know. I feel like a solos event wouldn't be that fun. I don't even know if it would work. A squads event of teams of 4 wouldn't be that unique, but it would be fine. It could technically work, but it's, they already mentioned it here. The norm in every other event is 4-player teams, and I think it wouldn't be unique. Exactly. I mean, we just kind of said the same thing. But yeah, so that's kind of the idea, right? It's up to the players to make that decision. Now, additionally, there was an idea recently, actually super recently, in my stream yesterday that surfaced a little bit because of something on Cytuxian, the minigame server, with Only Up. There is this feature that they have, which is Chained Together. Chained Together is a video game where you are literally chained together trying to go through an obstacle course, survive, escape. I don't really know. I didn't play the game. But you're chained together trying to complete a challenge, essentially, right? And the question, surfaced of how would an event like a duos, the Baablu event, this Baablu event, how would this have gone if it was chained together? And it's honestly a really interesting question. I mean, hey, maybe we'll ever see that. There seems to be a way to potentially try it, at least. But it's interesting. It's interesting. Maybe a chained together event could be interesting. Maybe it shouldn't be a Block Wars. It could be a Block Wars, but maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be. Maybe there's a different event that's a bit more well-suited for it. Maybe there's an event that's not built for 5 people, and maybe would also work well for duos, etc. Also, just in general, this is just regarding Block Wars, because Block Wars is the only event that's really explored this. When are other events going to explore having different sized teams? Block Wars has had more than 5 players, slightly less than 5 players, duos. What's next? Like, what's happening next? When are other events going to give it a shot? Because I actually think this works really well. I actually think it's really interesting to have an event where the teams are not either the same size or aren't the regular size amount of players. I don't really know which event specifically would do this. For example, right, MCC. When would MCC explore having different sized teams? We don't know how easily MCC gets their players. Nowadays, maybe they have an abundance of signups where they could do 6-player or 5-player teams technically, right? Or maybe there are events that want to try less, but they have way too many signups where, benching a bunch of extra people would not be something that they would want to try. We don't really know, right? We don't really know. As much as I'm an organizer of Block Wars, we've already explored these ideas. Block Wars doing a non-5-player team stuff idea event, whatever, right? Isn't like rocket science. It's not like the newest, potential idea. But there is a lot of creativity that could be done with a, more fewer person event type of idea. Also, hi, Mr. Wolfeei. I hope you read this. Hi, love you, Mr. Mayo. You're very awesome. Cool. Now that I've gotten flattery out of the way, can you please try funky teams like the ones above, please? Okay, thank you. Bye. We already did Block Wars Chaos, and it's up to the players. But yeah, it's also mentioned down here as well. Block Wars isn't really the main suspect of not a 5-player team, more of like collaboration, like how Chaos was sponsored and Baablu was. So it's about, I would say, based on who hosts it. Exactly. Bang on. And then this person says, outside of Chaos, Block Wars shouldn't do these types of teams for official Block Wars because it takes away the potential space for other players. Fair enough. However, this could be experimented with unofficial ones. I wasn't enjoying as much of the duos event because it was putting pressure on both players to do well at the same time. True. But I would like to see a trios event as I think it'd be less stressful within a team. It is up to the players. Again, that's kind of the conclusion we've reached. If a duos, trios, squads, solos, teams of 6, teams of 7, teams of 8, whatever, if that type of whole event wants to exist, it's up to the players. If the players want to try to put that together and want to work with us to try to do it, it could happen. But it's not something that Block Wars will just do by itself without a fair or valid reason. Additionally, again, I know I've brought Block Wars Chaos up a bunch of times, but we initially proposed the idea of non-standard teams. less players, more players, etc. in the same event, balancing not just with skill, but with volume, essentially, of how many players are on a team, etc. The balancing wasn't great. There's a lot of room for error, and because we were doing it for the first time, it was really hard to figure out how do you actually balance that. But yeah, we were the first event to already do it. It is something that we will not necessarily continuously do. I do think whenever the next Chaos event is, we'll probably feature that again. Maybe there will be another type of event in the future that could have different sized teams other than just 5-player teams. But for the rest, it's mostly just going to come down to, do the players want to do it, or do we have a good enough idea to do it ourselves? And also, like I've said previously, I want other events to explore this. PB, I think, it depends on the game roster, but because it's a competitive event, I think it'd be really cool to see a different sized team, mostly smaller. I think it'd be interesting to see less players per team in PB, sorry. MCC, I understand they probably won't explore it unless they also, similar to Block Wars Chaos, have a unique idea where making different sized teams would be good. Honestly, MCC Scuffed could be fine. Honestly, I think they could pull it off. Additionally, what else? Buy and Battle, I think, would be fine to do it. Buy and Battle's already explored 5-player teams and 4-player teams. They could do something where it's different again. So I guess, actually, Buy and Battle should deserve some credit because they've already done it in the past. For the rest, I don't know, right? Chamber Trials, I don't know what's up with that. Mayhem doesn't even exist. Who knows what else there is to be done regarding that. Either way, that's my thoughts on should there be fewer player events. Sure. Are we gonna do it? Maybe. I mean, it depends on the players. So, thank you for watching. I'll see you later. Goodbye.